Question 1. When evaluating the potential risks associated with launching a new line of own-brand organic food products, which of the following approaches best supports a comprehensive and responsible risk assessment process for X5 Retail Group? Option A. Conducting a qualitative assessment of potential risks, considering their likelihood and potential impact on product quality, customer perception, and supply chain integrity. Option B. Assigning the entire risk assessment task to the marketing intern to gather initial impressions. Option C. Prioritizing only the potential profit margins of the new product line, without considering any negative externalities. Option D. Proceeding with the launch based on market research indicating high consumer demand, assuming no significant issues will arise. The correct answer is A. Conducting a qualitative assessment of potential risks, considering their likelihood and potential impact on product quality, customer perception, and supply chain integrity. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the assessment of potential risks associated with a new product launch within the X5 Retail Group. The challenge lies in identifying and prioritizing these risks effectively to ensure the product's success and compliance with internal policies and external regulations, without relying on purely quantitative measures. Careful judgment is needed to balance potential benefits against potential harms. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a qualitative assessment of risks, focusing on the likelihood and potential impact of identified risks. This aligns with best professional practice by enabling a structured and reasoned evaluation of potential threats to the product launch and the business. It allows for the identification of key areas requiring mitigation strategies and resource allocation, thereby supporting informed decision-making and proactive risk management, which is implicitly expected within a retail environment governed by general business conduct and consumer protection principles. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to ignore potential risks altogether, assuming that the product will be successful without any adverse outcomes. This is professionally unacceptable as it demonstrates a severe lack of due diligence and foresight, potentially leading to significant financial losses, reputational damage, and non-compliance with consumer protection laws. It fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to protect both the business and its customers. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the potential financial gains of the new product, disregarding any associated operational or reputational risks. This is ethically flawed as it prioritizes profit over the well-being of customers and the long-term sustainability of the business. It neglects the regulatory expectation of responsible business practices and consumer safety. A third incorrect approach would be to delegate the entire risk assessment process to a single junior employee without adequate oversight or guidance. This is professionally irresponsible and ethically questionable, as it fails to leverage the collective expertise within the organization and places undue pressure on an individual. It also risks overlooking critical risks due to a lack of experience or a narrow perspective, potentially violating internal governance structures and the principle of accountability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach risk assessment by first identifying potential risks across various categories, e.g., operational, financial, reputational, legal. Subsequently, they should qualitatively evaluate the likelihood of each risk occurring and the potential impact if it does. This evaluation should inform the development of appropriate mitigation strategies and contingency plans. The process should involve cross-functional collaboration and clear documentation, ensuring that decisions are based on a comprehensive understanding of potential challenges and aligned with the organization's risk appetite and regulatory obligations. Question 2. The performance metrics show a consistent decline in customer satisfaction scores and an increase in customer complaints regarding service speed and staff availability over the past quarter. Management is under pressure to improve profitability. Which of the following actions best addresses this situation while adhering to best professional practices and regulatory expectations? Option A. Conduct a detailed review of customer feedback and operational workflows to identify specific areas of inefficiency and customer dissatisfaction, then develop targeted training and process improvement initiatives. Option B. Increase the prices of key products and services to compensate for the perceived decline in revenue and cover potential future service enhancements. Option C. Immediately implement a significant reduction in staffing levels across all departments to cut operational costs and improve the remaining staff's focus on essential tasks. Option D. Reduce the variety and quantity of stock available to simplify inventory management and free up staff time from replenishment duties. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed review of customer feedback and operational workflows to identify specific areas of inefficiency and customer dissatisfaction, then develop targeted training and process improvement initiatives. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for immediate cost reduction with the long-term implications for customer satisfaction and regulatory compliance. The pressure to meet short-term financial targets can lead to decisions that compromise service quality, potentially violating consumer protection regulations and damaging the company's reputation. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that are both financially responsible and ethically sound, adhering to the X5 Retail Group's internal policies and relevant UK consumer law. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven investigation into the root causes of the performance dip before implementing drastic measures. This aligns with the principles of responsible business conduct and good governance, ensuring that any changes are strategic and sustainable. By focusing on understanding customer feedback and operational inefficiencies, the company can implement targeted improvements that enhance both customer experience and operational efficiency, thereby indirectly supporting financial goals without compromising service standards. This proactive and analytical method is crucial for maintaining customer trust and avoiding potential regulatory scrutiny related to service provision. An incorrect approach that involves immediate staff reductions without a clear understanding of the impact on service levels is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to understaffing, increased workload for remaining employees, and a decline in customer service quality. Such a decision would likely contravene UK consumer protection laws, such as the Consumer Rights Act 2015, which implies that goods and services must be of satisfactory quality, fit for purpose, and provided with reasonable care and skill. Furthermore, it could violate ethical guidelines regarding fair treatment of employees and responsible management practices. Another incorrect approach, such as significantly increasing prices to offset perceived losses, is also professionally unacceptable. This could be seen as exploitative, particularly if the price increases are not justified by demonstrable improvements in product or service quality. It risks alienating customers and could attract attention from regulatory bodies concerned with fair pricing and market competition. A third incorrect approach, such as reducing the quality or quantity of products offered without clear communication to customers, is ethically and legally problematic. This directly impacts the value proposition for the customer and could lead to breaches of contract or misrepresentation, violating consumer protection legislation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Data gathering and analysis. Collect comprehensive data on performance metrics, customer feedback, and operational processes. 2. Root cause identification. Analyze the data to pinpoint the underlying reasons for performance issues. 3. Impact assessment. Evaluate the potential consequences of various solutions on customers, employees, and the business's long-term viability. 4. Solution development. Brainstorm and develop a range of potential solutions, considering both short-term and long-term effects. 5. Stakeholder consultation. Engage with relevant stakeholders, including customer service teams and operational managers, to gather insights and ensure buy-in. 6. Regulatory and ethical review. Assess each proposed solution against relevant UK laws and ethical standards. 7. Implementation and monitoring. Implement the chosen solution and continuously monitor its effectiveness, making adjustments as needed. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential unauthorized access to a customer database. The IT security team needs to investigate this incident urgently to determine the scope and impact. Which of the following actions best aligns with X5 Retail Group's likely data protection obligation and best practices for incident response? Option A. Contain the suspected unauthorized access. Then launch a targeted investigation based on a documented plan that specifies the data required and the purpose of access, consulting with legal and compliance teams. Option B. Inform all customers immediately about a potential data breach to ensure transparency, regardless of the confirmed details of the incident. Option C. Halt all investigation activities until a comprehensive legal review of all potential data access scenarios can be completed, which may take several days. Option D. Immediately initiate a full forensic analysis of all customer transaction logs, prioritizing speed over detailed justification for data access. The correct answer is D. Immediately initiate a full forensic analysis of all customer transaction logs, prioritizing speed over detailed justification for data access. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the obligation to protect sensitive customer data. The pressure to respond quickly to a potential security incident can lead to hasty decisions that might compromise privacy or violate data protection regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the investigation is thorough yet compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, compliant, and proportionate response. It involves immediate containment and assessment, followed by a systematic investigation that respects data privacy principles. This aligns with the X5 Retail Group's likely internal policies and general data protection best practices, which would mandate a measured response to security incidents to prevent further harm and ensure regulatory adherence. This approach minimizes the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure of customer data during the investigation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately accessing all customer transaction logs without a clear, documented justification or scope. This is a regulatory failure as it likely violates data minimization principles and potentially the X5 Retail Group's own data privacy policies, which would require a lawful basis and specific purpose for accessing personal data. It also presents an ethical failure by overstepping boundaries and potentially exposing more data than necessary. Another incorrect approach is to delay the investigation significantly while seeking extensive legal approvals for every step. A legal consultation is important. An undue delay in responding to a potential security breach can exacerbate the damage, leading to greater customer impact and potential regulatory penalties for failing to act promptly. This approach fails to strike a balance between compliance and operational necessity. A third incorrect approach is to inform all customers immediately about a potential breach before confirming its nature or extent. This can cause unnecessary panic, damage customer trust, and potentially alert malicious actors. Best practice dictates a controlled communication strategy, informing affected individuals only when specific details are confirmed and remediation steps are in place, in line with regulatory notification requirements. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a framework that begins with immediate incident containment and assessment. This should be followed by a documented investigation plan that clearly defines the scope, objectives, and data access requirements, ensuring proportionality. Legal and compliance teams should be consulted early to guide the process and ensure adherence to all relevant regulations and internal policies. Communication should be managed strategically, with transparency and timeliness appropriate to the confirmed nature of the incident. Question 4. The audit findings indicate that several recent supplier invoices were processed and paid without a corresponding, fully approved purchase order being on file, and without clear documentation of goods or services received against these invoices. Option A. Focus on the total value of the invoices and assess if the overall expenditure for the period remains within the budgeted amount, as this indicates financial control. Option B. Review the company's documented procurement policy to understand the required steps for invoice processing and payment, and then meticulously examine the specific transactions in question to determine if each step of the policy was followed, seeking to understand any deviations. Option C. Proceed with payment of the invoices, but make a note to verbally remind the procurement team to be more diligent in obtaining purchase orders and receiving documentation for future transactions. Option D. Accept the supplier's invoices as valid if the prices appear to be within a reasonable market range, assuming the supplier is reputable and the goods/services were likely delivered. The correct answer is B. Review the company's documented procurement policy to understand the required steps for invoice processing and payment, and then meticulously examine the specific transactions in question to determine if each step of the policy was followed, seeking to understand any deviations. Explanation. The audit findings indicate a potential breakdown in the internal controls surrounding the procurement process at X5 Retail Group. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the company's internal policies, ethical considerations, and the potential for regulatory noncompliance, even if no explicit fraud is immediately apparent. The pressure to meet sales targets or secure favorable supplier terms can create an environment where shortcuts are tempting, but adherence to established procedures is paramount for maintaining integrity and mitigating risk. The correct approach, which involves a thorough review of the documented procurement policy and a detailed examination of the specific transactions against those documented procedures, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and internal control frameworks, which mandate clear, documented processes for all significant financial activities. By verifying that each step of the procurement process was followed as per policy, the individual demonstrates diligence, objectivity, and a commitment to upholding the company's established standards. This proactive verification is crucial for identifying control weaknesses before they can be exploited or lead to more significant issues. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the outcome, e.g., whether the price was competitive, without scrutinizing the process is professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the fundamental purpose of internal controls, which is to ensure that transactions are authorized, recorded accurately, and executed in accordance with management's intent and established policies. Such an approach risks masking procedural deviations that could lead to financial misstatements, reputational damage, or even legal repercussions if they violate specific X5 Retail Group regulations or industry best practices. Another incorrect approach that involves accepting the supplier's invoice without cross-referencing it against the purchase order or goods received note is a direct failure to adhere to basic internal control procedures. This bypasses critical verification steps designed to prevent overpayments, receipt of incorrect goods, or unauthorized purchases. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the company's financial stewardship responsibilities. A third incorrect approach that involves seeking informal verbal approval for deviations from policy, even if seemingly minor, is also professionally unsound. While flexibility can be important, relying on informal approvals undermines the audit trail and the principle of accountability. It creates ambiguity about decision-making authority and can be a precursor to more significant control breakdowns. This approach fails to establish a clear record of decisions and justifications, making it difficult to assess compliance and risk retrospectively. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Understand the established policies and procedures relevant to the situation. 2. Objectively assess the facts and evidence presented. 3. Compare the observed actions against the documented requirements. 4. Identify any deviations and assess their potential impact and root cause. 5. Escalate concerns or recommend corrective actions based on the findings, always prioritizing adherence to policy and ethical conduct. Question 5. The performance metrics show a consistent and significant increase in customer complaints regarding product availability at the central distribution warehouse serving multiple X5 Retail Group stores. This trend has been observed over the past quarter, impacting several product categories. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the regional operations manager to address this issue? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive audit of the warehouse's inventory management system, including stock receiving, storage, and dispatch procedures, and consult with the logistics and procurement teams to identify potential bottlenecks or supplier-related issues. Option B. Immediately instruct the warehouse to increase its buffer stock levels for all frequently purchased items to prevent future stockouts at the store level. Option C. Implement a temporary surcharge on products that have experienced the highest complaint rates to offset potential lost sales and increased operational costs. Option D. Conduct a series of disciplinary meetings with warehouse supervisors to identify and address individual performance issues contributing to the stockouts. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive audit of the warehouse's inventory management system, including stock receiving, storage, and dispatch procedures, and consult with the logistics and procurement teams to identify potential bottlenecks or supplier-related issues. Explanation. The performance metrics show a significant increase in customer complaints regarding product availability in a specific store location. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of operational efficiency, customer service standards, and adherence to X5 Retail Group's internal policies and potentially relevant consumer protection guidelines. The pressure to quickly resolve the issue while maintaining profitability and customer satisfaction necessitates careful judgment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven investigation into the root cause of the stockouts. This involves not just looking at sales data, but also examining inventory management systems, supplier reliability, and store-level operational procedures. By engaging with store management and relevant departments, it fosters a collaborative problem-solving environment. This aligns with X5 Retail Group's commitment to operational excellence and customer satisfaction, ensuring that immediate, superficial fixes are avoided in favor of sustainable solutions. It also implicitly respects the integrity of the supply chain and the customer's right to expect advertised products to be available. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on reducing stock levels to avoid stockouts would be professionally unacceptable. This would likely lead to lost sales and customer dissatisfaction, failing to address the underlying operational issues. It could also be seen as a breach of implied consumer trust, where customers expect a reasonable level of product availability. Another incorrect approach, such as blaming the store staff without a proper investigation, demonstrates a failure in leadership and due diligence. It bypasses the opportunity to identify systemic problems within inventory management or supplier relationships, potentially leading to a recurrence of the issue and damaging staff morale. A third incorrect approach, which involves temporarily increasing prices to manage demand, would be ethically questionable and likely violate X5 Retail Group's pricing policies and potentially consumer protection regulations regarding fair pricing practices. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with objective data analysis, followed by stakeholder consultation, root cause identification, and the development of a multifaceted action plan. This process should be iterative, with continuous monitoring and evaluation of the implemented solutions. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a critical sales performance metric for a key product line is incomplete due to a temporary system glitch affecting data capture for a specific region. Senior management requires an immediate update on the overall performance of this product line. Which of the following actions best reflects professional best practice in this situation? Option A. Provide the most up-to-date, verified figures available for the regions where data is complete, clearly stating that the data for one region is currently unavailable and will be provided as soon as it is rectified. Option B. Inform senior management that a complete and accurate update cannot be provided until the system glitch is fully resolved and all data is verified. Option C. Estimate the missing data for the affected region based on historical trends and provide a consolidated, albeit partially estimated, overall performance figure. Option D. Report only the confirmed sales figures from the unaffected regions, omitting any mention of the incomplete data from the affected region to avoid confusion. The correct answer is A. Provide the most up-to-date, verified figures available for the regions where data is complete, clearly stating that the data for one region is currently unavailable and will be provided as soon as it is rectified. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the need for timely information with the imperative to maintain data integrity and adhere to established reporting protocols. The pressure to provide an immediate update, while understandable in a fast-paced retail environment, must not override the fundamental requirement for accuracy and compliance with internal policies and potentially external regulatory guidelines. Though this question focuses on internal best practice within the X5 Retail Group framework, the correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes accuracy and adherence to established procedures. By acknowledging the limitation and committing to providing verified data, the individual demonstrates integrity and a commitment to reliable reporting. This aligns with the X5 Retail Group's likely internal guidelines for data handling and communication, which would emphasize accuracy to prevent misinformed decision-making by senior management. It also fosters trust in the reporting process. An incorrect approach that involves providing an estimated figure without clear qualification is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to misinformed strategic decisions based on inaccurate data, potentially impacting inventory management, sales forecasts, or financial reporting. Ethically, it misrepresents the true state of affairs. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying the report indefinitely until absolute certainty is achieved, fails to meet the operational need for timely information, even if it prioritizes accuracy. This can hinder the business's ability to react to market changes or operational issues. A third incorrect approach, which involves selectively reporting only the confirmed data points and omitting the incomplete ones, creates a skewed and incomplete picture, leading to a similar risk of misinformed decision-making as providing an estimate. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves, first, understanding the urgency and the nature of the information required. Second, assessing the reliability and completeness of the available data. Third, communicating any limitations or uncertainties transparently to stakeholders. And fourth, committing to providing accurate, verified information as soon as it becomes available, while adhering to established reporting channels and protocols. Question 7. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood and moderate impact for stock discrepancies across several product categories. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and professional response for the store manager to implement? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of stock handling procedures, provide targeted staff training on accurate receiving and stocking, and analyze recent sales data for patterns that might indicate systemic issues or specific product vulnerabilities. Option B. Reallocate staff resources from customer service to inventory counting, significantly reducing the time spent on direct customer engagement to focus solely on stock accuracy. Option C. Increase the frequency of random stock checks without investigating the root causes of previous discrepancies, assuming that more frequent checks will deter future issues. Option D. Immediately install additional CCTV cameras in all stockrooms and sales floors, and implement a zero-tolerance policy with immediate dismissal for any staff member found to be involved in even minor stock discrepancies. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of stock handling procedures, provide targeted staff training on accurate receiving and stocking, and analyze recent sales data for patterns that might indicate systemic issues or specific product vulnerabilities. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in retail risk management, balancing operational efficiency with the need for robust internal controls. The risk matrix, a standard tool for prioritizing risks, highlights a moderate likelihood and moderate impact for stock discrepancies. This indicates a need for attention, but not necessarily immediate, drastic intervention that could disrupt sales or customer experience. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most effective and proportionate response, adhering to X5 Retail Group's internal policies and relevant retail regulations concerning inventory management and loss prevention, without overreacting or underestimating the issue. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven investigation. This means analyzing the root causes of the discrepancies, which could range from procedural errors in receiving or stocking to potential theft or even inaccuracies in the inventory management system. Implementing targeted training for staff on accurate stock handling procedures, reviewing and potentially refining existing loss prevention measures, and conducting a more detailed audit of high-risk product categories are all proportionate and effective steps. This approach aligns with best practices in retail risk management, emphasizing continuous improvement and a proactive stance on identifying and mitigating operational weaknesses. It respects the principle of proportionality, ensuring that the response is commensurate with the identified risk level. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a blanket policy of increased surveillance or severe disciplinary actions for all staff. This is a disproportionate response to a moderate risk and could lead to a demotivated workforce, decreased morale, and potential legal challenges if disciplinary actions are not based on proven individual misconduct. It fails to address the potential systemic or procedural issues that might be contributing to the discrepancies. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the risk matrix findings altogether, assuming the discrepancies are minor and will resolve themselves. This demonstrates a failure to adhere to established risk management protocols and could allow a moderate risk to escalate into a significant problem, potentially leading to substantial financial losses and reputational damage, and violating the implicit duty of care to manage company assets effectively. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the context provided by the risk matrix. They should then consider a range of potential solutions, evaluating each against criteria such as effectiveness, cost, impact on operations and staff, and regulatory compliance. A phased approach, starting with less intrusive but data-informed interventions and escalating only if necessary, is generally the most prudent and professional method. This involves clear communication, data analysis, and a focus on root cause identification rather than immediate punitive measures. Question 8. Strategic planning requires a thorough evaluation of market dynamics and competitive actions. Considering the X5 Retail Group's commitment to ethical operations and regulatory compliance within the UK, which of the following approaches to developing a new promotional campaign would be considered best practice? Option A. Launching a campaign featuring a limited-time offer on a new product line, relying primarily on internal sales projections and a general understanding of consumer demand without detailed market research. Option B. Focusing the campaign solely on highlighting perceived weaknesses of competitor products to draw customers away, without substantiating these claims with objective data. Option C. Implementing a campaign that aggressively matches competitor prices on key items, even if it requires significant margin reduction, to capture immediate market share. Option D. Developing a campaign based on a comprehensive analysis of customer purchasing habits, competitor strategies, and current market trends, ensuring all promotional claims are verifiable and compliant with UK advertising standards. The correct answer is C. Implementing a campaign that aggressively matches competitor prices on key items, even if it requires significant margin reduction, to capture immediate market share. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in retail strategic planning, balancing immediate sales targets with long-term brand integrity and customer loyalty. The X5 Retail Group operates within a specific regulatory environment, assumed to be the UK for this example, aligning with CISI guidelines. This environment emphasizes fair trading practices, accurate product representation, and responsible marketing. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying these principles to a dynamic market where competitors may employ aggressive, potentially misleading tactics. Careful judgment is required to ensure that strategic decisions are not only profitable, but also compliant and ethically sound, fostering sustainable growth rather than short-term gains at the expense of reputation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding of the market, customer needs, and the competitive landscape, all within the bounds of regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves a data-driven assessment of market trends, competitor strategies, and customer feedback, leading to a strategic plan that is both responsive and responsible. Specifically, it aligns with UK consumer protection laws, e.g., Consumer Rights Act 2015, which mandates goods to be of satisfactory quality, fit for purpose, and has described and advertising standards, e.g., Advertising Standards Authority guidelines, which prohibit misleading advertising. Ethical considerations, such as transparency and fairness, are also integral, ensuring that customer trust is maintained. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on aggressive price matching without verifying competitor claims or considering the long-term impact on brand perception is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to regulatory breaches if competitor pricing is based on misrepresentation, or if the price matching itself is executed in a way that deceives consumers, e.g., by offering a price match on a product that is not truly equivalent. It also risks devaluing the brand and eroding customer loyalty by creating a perception of a race to the bottom. Another incorrect approach, which involves launching a new product line based on unverified market research and without considering potential supply chain disruptions or regulatory hurdles, demonstrates a failure in due diligence. This could result in product recalls, customer dissatisfaction, and potential fines for non-compliance with product safety or labeling regulations. A third incorrect approach, which relies on anecdotal evidence and personal intuition rather than robust data analysis for strategic decisions, ignores the importance of evidence-based decision-making mandated by good business practice and often implicitly required by regulatory oversight bodies that expect reasoned justifications for business strategies. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the strategic objective clearly. 2. Gather comprehensive and reliable data from multiple sources, market research, sales data, customer feedback, competitor analysis. 3. Assess potential strategies against regulatory requirements and ethical principles. 4. Evaluate the risks and benefits of each strategy, considering both short-term and long-term implications. 5. Consult with relevant stakeholders and legal/compliance teams. 6. Develop a clear, actionable plan with measurable outcomes and contingency measures. 7. Monitor performance and adapt the strategy as needed, always maintaining a commitment to compliance and ethical conduct. Question 9. Compliance review shows that a significant volume of customer feedback regarding the online checkout process has been received. The operations team is eager to implement changes quickly to address perceived issues. However, the data appears to contain some inconsistencies and potential outliers. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure best practice is followed? Option A. Initiate a thorough validation and cleansing of the customer feedback data to identify and address inconsistencies before proceeding with any system modifications. Option B. Archive the feedback data for future review, as the current inconsistencies make it too unreliable to act upon promptly. Option C. Immediately implement changes to the checkout process based on the most frequently cited issues in the raw feedback data to demonstrate responsiveness to customers. Option D. Delegate the task of interpreting and acting on the feedback to the customer service team, as they are most familiar with customer complaints. The correct answer is A. Initiate a thorough validation and cleansing of the customer feedback data to identify and address inconsistencies before proceeding with any system modifications. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for efficient data processing with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and accuracy, particularly when dealing with customer feedback. The pressure to quickly implement changes based on feedback can lead to overlooking crucial validation steps, potentially resulting in flawed decisions and negative customer experiences. The professional challenge lies in resisting the urge for expediency and adhering to robust quality assurance processes. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic review and validation of the feedback data before initiating any system changes. This aligns with best practices in data management and operational efficiency, ensuring that decisions are based on reliable information. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, it upholds the principle of acting with due diligence and care. By validating the data, the company avoids making decisions based on potentially erroneous or incomplete information, which could lead to customer dissatisfaction and reputational damage. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of implementing ineffective or detrimental changes. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately proceeding with system modifications based on the initial feedback without any verification. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it bypasses essential quality control measures. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for data accuracy, potentially leading to wasted resources and customer frustration if the feedback is misinterpreted or unrepresentative. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the feedback entirely due to the perceived volume or complexity of the data. This fails to acknowledge the value of customer input and can be seen as a dereliction of the ethical responsibility to listen to and act upon customer concerns. It also represents a missed opportunity for improvement and could lead to a decline in customer loyalty. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the validation process to an unqualified individual or team. This is a failure in operational oversight and demonstrates a lack of commitment to data integrity. It increases the risk of errors going unnoticed and undermines the credibility of any subsequent actions taken based on the feedback. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that prioritizes data integrity and validation. This involves establishing clear protocols for data collection, review, and approval before any operational changes are implemented. When faced with feedback, the first step should always be to assess its source, context, and potential biases. Subsequently, a validation process should be initiated to confirm the accuracy and representativeness of the data. Only after thorough validation should decisions regarding system modifications or other actions be made. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with the company's commitment to quality and customer satisfaction. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new customer loyalty program feature that automatically shares customer purchase history with third-party marketing partners for targeted advertising offers significant cost savings and potential revenue uplift. However, the existing terms and conditions for the loyalty program are vague regarding such data sharing. What is the most appropriate course of action for X5 Retail Group to take? Option A. Halt the implementation and conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed data sharing, including a data protection impact assessment, and seek explicit, informed consent from customers before enabling the feature. Option B. Implement the feature immediately to capture the cost savings, and only address customer concerns if they are raised directly, relying on the existing vague terms and conditions as sufficient justification. Option C. Share customer data with third-party partners without any explicit consent or review, as the cost-benefit analysis indicates a clear financial advantage for the company. Option D. Proceed with the feature implementation, assuming customers implicitly consent to data sharing by participating in the loyalty program, and update the terms and conditions retrospectively if any issues arise. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the feature implementation, assuming customers implicitly consent to data sharing by participating in the loyalty program, and update the terms and conditions retrospectively if any issues arise. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed change against potential long-term risks and regulatory compliance. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying the X5 Retail Group's internal policies and relevant UK regulations, specifically concerning data privacy and customer trust, when faced with a seemingly cost-effective solution. Careful judgment is needed to ensure that short-term gains do not compromise the company's legal obligations or its reputation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and adherence to the spirit and letter of data protection regulations, such as the UK GDPR. This involves understanding the potential impact on customer data, ensuring transparency, and obtaining appropriate consent where necessary. By seeking legal and compliance review, the company demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling, which is a cornerstone of ethical business conduct and regulatory compliance in the UK. This proactive stance mitigates legal penalties, reputational damage, and maintains customer confidence. An incorrect approach that overlooks the need for explicit customer consent for data usage, even if it appears to streamline operations and reduce costs, fails to comply with the fundamental principles of data protection. This can lead to regulatory breaches, fines under the UK GDPR, and significant damage to the company's reputation. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on implied consent or assumes customers will not object to data sharing for marketing purposes without clear opt-in mechanisms is also a violation. This demonstrates a disregard for customer autonomy and privacy rights, which are legally protected. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes speed and cost savings over a comprehensive data impact assessment risks implementing a system that is not compliant from the outset, leading to potential retrospective remediation costs and legal scrutiny. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the proposed change and its objectives. Second, identify all relevant internal policies and external regulations. Third, conduct a thorough risk assessment, considering legal, ethical, and reputational implications. Fourth, consult with relevant departments, including legal, compliance, and IT security. Fifth, evaluate alternative solutions that achieve the objectives while minimizing risks and ensuring compliance. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen course of action. Question 11. Governance review demonstrates that the marketing department wishes to implement a new targeted advertising campaign leveraging customer purchase history. The campaign aims to increase sales by offering personalized discounts. However, the current system for obtaining customer consent for marketing communications is a broad opt-in within the general terms and conditions, which customers may not have fully read or understood. The review highlights a potential gap between the marketing department's ambitions and the company's data protection obligations. Which of the following approaches best addresses this implementation challenge while adhering to regulatory and ethical standards? Option A. Implement a new consent mechanism that clearly outlines the specific purposes for which purchase history will be used for targeted marketing, requiring explicit, affirmative consent from customers before any such marketing is initiated. Option B. Continue with the existing broad opt-in in the terms and conditions, assuming that customers who have not actively opted out have implicitly agreed to the use of their purchase history for marketing. Option C. Utilize anonymized and aggregated purchase data for the targeted campaign, thereby avoiding the use of individual customer data and circumventing the need for explicit consent. Option D. Update the privacy policy to explicitly state that purchase history will be used for targeted marketing, and proceed with the campaign, relying on the updated policy as sufficient legal basis. The correct answer is A. Implement a new consent mechanism that clearly outlines the specific purposes for which purchase history will be used for targeted marketing, requiring explicit, affirmative consent from customers before any such marketing is initiated. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between achieving business objectives and adhering to regulatory requirements, particularly concerning data privacy and customer consent. The X5 Retail Group operates within a framework that mandates strict adherence to data protection principles, requiring explicit and informed consent for marketing activities. The challenge lies in balancing the desire to leverage customer data for targeted promotions with the legal and ethical obligations to protect that data and respect customer preferences. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any data utilization strategy is compliant, transparent, and customer-centric. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes obtaining explicit, informed consent before engaging in targeted marketing. This aligns directly with the principles of data protection legislation, which emphasizes individual control over personal data. By clearly communicating the purpose of data collection and usage, and providing an easy opt-out mechanism, the company demonstrates respect for customer privacy and builds trust. This proactive approach mitigates the risk of regulatory breaches and reputational damage, fostering a sustainable and ethical business model. An incorrect approach that involves using customer purchase history for targeted marketing without explicit consent fails to meet the fundamental requirements of data protection. This constitutes a regulatory failure as it breaches the principle of lawful processing, which requires a valid legal basis, such as consent, for using personal data. Ethically, it is unacceptable as it infringes upon an individual's right to privacy and autonomy over their data. Another incorrect approach, which relies on implied consent derived from a general privacy policy, is also professionally unacceptable. While a privacy policy is necessary, it is insufficient on its own to justify the use of personal data for marketing purposes without specific, affirmative consent, especially for sensitive data or extensive profiling. This approach risks misinterpreting customer intent and can lead to a perception of data misuse. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant regulatory obligations and ethical considerations. This involves understanding the specific requirements of data protection laws applicable to X5 Retail Group. Subsequently, the potential business benefits of any proposed action should be weighed against the associated risks of noncompliance and ethical breaches. The preferred course of action should always be the one that demonstrably upholds regulatory standards and ethical principles, even if it requires a more resource-intensive implementation. Transparency with customers and the provision of clear choices regarding their data are paramount. Question 12. The efficiency study reveals a persistent discrepancy between recorded inventory levels and actual stock on shelves, leading to frequent stockouts of popular items and an accumulation of slow-moving goods. The operations manager is under pressure to rectify this immediately. Which of the following actions best addresses this challenge, while adhering to X5 Retail Group's operational and ethical standards? Option A. Implement a blanket increase in order quantities for all product categories to mitigate the risk of future stockouts, regardless of current stock levels or sales velocity. Option B. Immediately source alternative, unverified suppliers to quickly replenish stock of popular items, prioritizing speed over existing supplier relationships and due diligence. Option C. Temporarily halt all new stock deliveries until the existing inventory can be physically counted and reconciled, accepting potential customer dissatisfaction due to immediate stockouts. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive review of current inventory management processes, including stock-taking accuracy, receiving procedures, and internal stock transfer protocols, to identify and rectify systemic issues within the existing supplier network. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive review of current inventory management processes, including stock-taking accuracy, receiving procedures, and internal stock transfer protocols, to identify and rectify systemic issues within the existing supplier network. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the inventory management system, leading to stockouts and overstocking. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational efficiency with regulatory compliance and ethical sourcing practices. The pressure to quickly resolve stock issues must not compromise the integrity of the supply chain or lead to the acceptance of non-compliant goods. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation into the root cause of the inventory discrepancies, focusing on process improvements within the existing regulatory framework. This includes reviewing stock-taking procedures, supplier agreements, and internal controls, adhering to X5 Retail Group's established policies and any relevant UK retail regulations, e.g., Consumer Rights Act 2015 regarding product quality and availability, and potentially specific food safety regulations if applicable, ensures that any implemented solutions are sustainable, compliant, and ethically sound. This approach prioritizes long-term operational health and customer trust over short-term fixes. An incorrect approach would be to immediately seek alternative, potentially less vetted suppliers to fill immediate stock gaps. This carries significant regulatory and ethical risks. For instance, engaging with unverified suppliers could lead to the introduction of products that do not meet UK safety standards, contravening consumer protection laws and potentially leading to product recalls, fines, and severe reputational damage. Ethically, it bypasses due diligence and could inadvertently support suppliers with poor labor practices or environmental records, violating principles of responsible sourcing. Another incorrect approach is to simply increase order quantities across the board without understanding the specific items causing the imbalance. This ignores the root cause and exacerbates the overstocking problem, leading to increased waste, storage costs, and potential obsolescence, which is an inefficient use of resources and can indirectly impact compliance with waste reduction guidelines. Professionals should employ a structured problem-solving framework. This involves clearly defining the problem, gathering data, identifying root causes, developing potential solutions, evaluating these solutions against criteria, including compliance, cost, and impact, implementing the chosen solution, and monitoring its effectiveness. In this context, the framework would guide the investigation towards understanding why the inventory system is failing, rather than just addressing the symptoms. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with both business objectives and regulatory obligations. Question 13. The assessment process reveals a significant and recurring discrepancy between recorded inventory levels and actual stock on hand in a specific department. While initial observations suggest potential internal theft, there is no direct evidence linking any particular employee. What is the most appropriate next step for the store manager to address this issue? Option A. Immediately confront the department's employees with the inventory discrepancies, suggesting that theft is the most likely cause and demanding their cooperation in identifying the culprit. Option B. Overlook the discrepancies for the time being, assuming they are due to minor administrative errors, and focus on other operational priorities to avoid potential conflict with staff. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of existing company policies on inventory management, loss prevention, and employee search protocols, and consult with the human resources and legal departments to ensure any further actions are compliant and fair. Option D. Implement a new, more stringent policy for employee bag checks and personal item searches at the end of each shift, without prior consultation with HR or legal. The correct answer is D. Implement a new, more stringent policy for employee bag checks and personal item searches at the end of each shift, without prior consultation with HR or legal. Explanation: the assessment process reveals a common challenge in retail environments, balancing the need for efficient inventory management with the imperative to prevent loss due to theft or damage. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of company policy, legal frameworks governing employee conduct and search procedures, and ethical considerations regarding individual privacy and trust. A hasty or overly aggressive approach can lead to legal repercussions, damage employee morale, and create a hostile work environment, while an overly lenient approach can result in significant financial losses for the company. Correct approach, which involves a thorough review of existing company policies and relevant employment law regarding searches, represents best professional practice. This is because it prioritizes a legally compliant and ethically sound method of addressing potential inventory discrepancies. It acknowledges that while loss prevention is crucial, it must be conducted within established legal boundaries and company guidelines to protect both the employer and the employee. This approach ensures that any investigative actions are fair, consistent, and justifiable, minimizing the risk of wrongful accusations or discriminatory practices. An incorrect approach that involves immediate, suspicion-based searches of employees without a clear policy or probable cause is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to employment law principles that protect employees from unreasonable searches and seizures. Such actions can lead to claims of constructive dismissal, harassment, or discrimination, resulting in significant legal penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the discrepancies entirely due to a reluctance to confront employees, represents a failure in duty of care to the business. This can lead to continued financial losses and may be seen as a dereliction of management responsibility, potentially violating internal control procedures and fiduciary duties. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the scope of the problem and identifying potential causes. This should be followed by a comprehensive review of all relevant internal policies and external legal obligations. When faced with such a situation, professionals should consult with HR and legal departments to ensure any proposed actions are compliant and appropriate. The process should involve gathering objective evidence, considering all possible explanations for the discrepancy, and implementing solutions that are fair, consistent, and legally sound, always prioritizing a balanced approach that respects both business needs and employee rights. Question 14. Compliance review shows that the X5 Retail Group is planning to launch a new customer loyalty program that will integrate data from in-store purchases, online activity, and third-party marketing partnerships. The project timeline is aggressive, with a target launch date in 3 months. The IT department has indicated that existing data security infrastructure is generally robust, but a formal, detailed assessment of the specific data processing activities for the loyalty program has not yet been conducted. What is the most appropriate next step to ensure compliance with data protection regulations? Option A. Initiate a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify and mitigate potential privacy risks associated with the loyalty program's data processing activities before the full rollout. Option B. Proceed with the loyalty program launch as scheduled, and conduct a review of data handling practices after the program has been operational for 6 months. Option C. Rely on the IT department's general assurance of existing data security measures and proceed with the launch, assuming they are sufficient for the new program. Option D. Conduct a brief, informal review of the data integration points by the marketing team to ensure basic data flow is functional. The correct answer is A. Initiate a comprehensive data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify and mitigate potential privacy risks associated with the loyalty program's data processing activities before the full rollout. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with regulatory compliance, specifically concerning data protection and customer privacy. The pressure to quickly implement a new customer loyalty program, coupled with the need to integrate data from various sources, creates a risk of overlooking critical data handling protocols. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the expediency of the launch does not compromise the integrity and security of customer data, which is a fundamental requirement under data protection regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, before the full rollout. This aligns with the principles of data protection by design and by default, as mandated by relevant data protection laws. A DPIA systematically identifies and mitigates risks to individuals' data privacy associated with the processing of personal data. By conducting this assessment, the company demonstrates a proactive commitment to compliance, ensuring that the loyalty program's data processing activities are lawful, fair, and transparent, and that appropriate security measures are in place to protect customer information. This approach safeguards customer trust and avoids potential regulatory penalties. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves proceeding with the launch without a formal DPIA, relying solely on the IT department's assurance of security. This is a significant regulatory failure, as it bypasses a mandatory risk assessment process designed to identify and address potential privacy harms. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the principles of accountability and data protection by design. Ethically, it exposes customers to unnecessary risks. Another incorrect approach is to conduct a superficial post-launch review of data handling practices. This is insufficient because it fails to prevent potential breaches or privacy infringements from occurring in the first place. Regulatory frameworks emphasize proactive measures, not reactive fixes. A post-launch review, while better than nothing, does not fulfill the obligation to assess risks before processing begins, and can still lead to significant compliance issues and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach is to assume that existing data security measures are adequate for the new program without specific evaluation. While existing measures might be robust, a new program often involves new types of data, new processing activities, and new third-party integrations, each presenting unique risks. Failing to conduct a specific assessment for the loyalty program means potential vulnerabilities specific to this initiative may go unnoticed, leading to a breach of data protection obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to compliance. When introducing new systems or processes that involve personal data, the first step should always be to assess the potential impact on data protection. This involves understanding the data being collected, how it will be used, who will have access to it, and what security measures are in place. If the assessment reveals significant risks, mitigation strategies must be developed and implemented before proceeding. This proactive and systematic approach ensures that compliance is embedded into the operational fabric of the organization, rather than being an afterthought. Question 15. Assessment of the appropriate initial steps a retail group should take upon discovering a potential unauthorized access to customer personal data stored on a cloud-based server, considering the need for both operational continuity and regulatory compliance. Option A. Issue a public statement acknowledging a minor system glitch without providing specific details about potential data exposure, to manage public perception and avoid unnecessary alarm. Option B. Proceed with deleting all potentially compromised customer data from the cloud server to prevent any further unauthorized access or misuse, assuming this will resolve the immediate threat. Option C. Immediately initiate a comprehensive forensic investigation to determine the scope and nature of the breach, isolate affected systems to prevent further compromise, and prepare for timely notification to regulatory authorities and affected individuals as per data protection laws. Option D. Delay reporting the incident to regulatory bodies and affected individuals until a full internal audit of all IT systems is completed, to avoid premature conclusions and potential panic. The correct answer is C. Immediately initiate a comprehensive forensic investigation to determine the scope and nature of the breach, isolate affected systems to prevent further compromise, and prepare for timely notification to regulatory authorities and affected individuals as per data protection laws. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing operational efficiency with regulatory compliance when faced with a potential data breach. The urgency to contain the situation and inform affected parties must be weighed against the need for a thorough, accurate, and legally compliant investigation. The pressure from senior management to resolve the issue quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes immediate containment and a structured, compliant response. This involves isolating the affected systems to prevent further data loss, initiating a formal investigation to understand the scope and nature of the breach, and preparing for timely notification to relevant authorities and individuals as mandated by data protection regulations. This aligns with the principles of data minimization, accountability, and transparency, ensuring that the response is both effective and legally sound, thereby mitigating further risks and penalties. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately deleting potentially compromised data without a proper forensic analysis. This action destroys crucial evidence, hindering the investigation and making it impossible to determine the full extent of the breach or identify the root cause. This violates the principle of accountability and can lead to severe regulatory penalties for failing to conduct a proper investigation and for potentially destroying evidence. Another incorrect approach is to delay reporting the incident to regulatory bodies and affected individuals beyond the stipulated timeframes. This lack of timely notification is a direct breach of data protection laws, which often have strict deadlines for reporting. Such delays can result in significant fines and reputational damage, as it demonstrates a disregard for the rights of individuals whose data has been compromised and for the regulatory oversight designed to protect them. A third incorrect approach is to communicate incomplete or misleading information to stakeholders about the breach. This erodes trust and can lead to further legal complications. Transparency and accuracy are paramount in breach notifications. Providing false or incomplete information can be seen as an attempt to conceal the severity of the incident, leading to increased regulatory scrutiny and potential legal action from affected parties. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should follow a structured decision-making process. First, prioritize containment and preservation of evidence. Second, consult with legal and compliance teams to ensure all actions align with regulatory requirements. Third, conduct a thorough investigation to understand the breach's scope and impact. Fourth, prepare clear, accurate, and timely notifications to all required parties. Finally, implement corrective actions to prevent future occurrences. This systematic approach ensures that operational needs are met while upholding legal and ethical obligations. Question 16. Comparative studies suggest that the implementation of advanced inventory tracking technologies in retail environments can inadvertently create challenges related to data privacy. Considering the X5 Retail Group's commitment to ethical operations and regulatory compliance, which of the following approaches best navigates the potential for personal data capture during the deployment of an RFID-based stock management system, ensuring both operational efficiency and robust data protection? Option A. Store all raw RFID scan data, including timestamps and location data, linked to individual customer transaction records to provide a comprehensive audit trail of product movement. Option B. Implement the RFID system to track stock movement, anonymizing all data collected and ensuring it is used solely for inventory management purposes, with no linkage to individual customer or employee actions. Option C. Deploy the RFID system without specific data security protocols, relying on general network security to protect the collected inventory data. Option D. Utilize the RFID system to monitor employee movements within the stockroom and sales floor to assess productivity, without informing employees of this specific monitoring. The correct answer is B. Implement the RFID system to track stock movement, anonymizing all data collected and ensuring it is used solely for inventory management purposes, with no linkage to individual customer or employee actions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in retail environments, balancing the need for efficient inventory management with the imperative to comply with data protection regulations. The challenge lies in the potential for personal data to be inadvertently captured or stored during the process of tracking stock movement. Retailers must implement systems that are both effective for business operations and robust in safeguarding customer privacy, especially when dealing with technologies that might infer or record individual behavior. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data minimization and purpose limitation, core principles of data protection. By anonymizing or aggregating data collected from the RFID system, the retailer ensures that no identifiable personal information is stored or processed unnecessarily. This aligns with the X5 Retail Group's commitment to responsible data handling and adherence to relevant data protection laws. The focus on using the data solely for inventory management, without linking it to individual customer actions, demonstrates a clear understanding of lawful processing grounds and avoids the risks associated with unauthorized surveillance or profiling. This approach upholds the trust of customers and employees by respecting their privacy rights. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that involves storing raw RFID scan data linked to individual customer transactions without explicit consent or a clear, legitimate business purpose for such linkage would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to a breach of data protection laws by collecting more personal data than necessary and processing it for purposes not clearly defined or consented to. It also raises ethical concerns about employee or customer surveillance. Another incorrect approach would be to implement the RFID system without any data security measures in place, leaving the collected data vulnerable to unauthorized access or breaches. This failure to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data is a direct violation of data protection principles and could result in severe penalties. Finally, an approach that ignores the potential for the RFID system to inadvertently capture employee movement data and does not implement safeguards to anonymize or restrict access to this information would also be problematic. This could lead to privacy violations for employees, creating a hostile work environment and potentially contravening employment law regarding monitoring. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such implementation challenges should adopt a privacy by design and privacy by default mindset. This involves proactively considering data protection implications at the outset of any new system implementation. A thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, should be conducted to identify potential risks and implement appropriate mitigation strategies. Clear policies and procedures should be established regarding data collection, processing, storage, and deletion. Regular training for staff on data protection responsibilities is also crucial. When in doubt, seeking legal counsel or consulting with a data protection officer is the most responsible course of action to ensure full compliance and ethical conduct. Question 17. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new, less expensive inventory management system could significantly reduce operational expenses in the short term. However, this system has a higher error rate and requires more manual intervention from staff, potentially impacting stock accuracy and customer service levels. What is the most prudent course of action? Option A. Implement the new system immediately to realize cost savings, deferring any assessment of its impact until significant problems arise. Option B. Negotiate with the supplier of the new system to reduce its error rate, even if this significantly increases its initial cost, to ensure it meets current operational standards. Option C. Proceed with the new system, implementing additional staff training and performance monitoring to mitigate potential issues, while closely tracking key performance indicators for stock accuracy and customer satisfaction. Option D. Reject the new system outright due to the potential for increased errors and negative customer impact, opting to maintain the current, more reliable but more expensive system. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the new system, implementing additional staff training and performance monitoring to mitigate potential issues, while closely tracking key performance indicators for stock accuracy and customer satisfaction. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in retail management, balancing immediate cost savings with potential long-term impacts on customer loyalty and brand reputation. The decision maker must weigh the quantifiable benefits of a cost reduction measure against less tangible, but equally important factors. The X5 Retail Group Hiring Assessment Test, in its focus on practical application, expects candidates to demonstrate an understanding of how to navigate such trade-offs ethically and effectively, aligning with principles of good business practice and potentially implicit regulatory expectations around fair treatment of customers and employees, even if not explicitly codified in a specific X5 Retail Group Hiring Assessment Test regulation. The correct approach prioritizes a holistic view, considering not just immediate financial gains, but also the potential for negative consequences such as decreased customer satisfaction, increased staff turnover, and damage to the company's image. This aligns with best professional practice by advocating for sustainable business strategies that build long-term value rather than short-term expediency. It reflects an understanding that customer trust and employee morale are critical assets that, once eroded, are difficult and costly to rebuild. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on the immediate cost savings, without adequately considering the potential negative externalities, fails to uphold professional responsibility. This could lead to regulatory scrutiny if the cost-cutting measures result in a decline in service quality that breaches implied consumer protection standards or creates an environment that fosters employee grievances, potentially leading to disputes or claims. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes a quick fix without thorough investigation might overlook critical risks or unintended consequences, demonstrating a lack of due diligence. This can result in decisions that are not only financially suboptimal in the long run, but also ethically questionable, potentially impacting the company's reputation and its relationship with stakeholders. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that includes clearly defining the problem and objectives, identifying all relevant stakeholders and their interests, brainstorming a range of potential solutions, evaluating each solution based on a comprehensive set of criteria: financial, operational, ethical, reputational, legal, selecting the option that best balances competing interests and risks, and finally, implementing and monitoring the chosen solution. This systematic process ensures that decisions are well-informed, defensible, and aligned with the organization's values and long-term strategic goals. Question 18. To address the challenge of securing a significant new contract with a potential supplier, you discover a minor but potentially impactful discrepancy in the supplier's product specifications that was not initially disclosed. This discrepancy, if not addressed, could lead to future customer dissatisfaction. You are under pressure to finalize the contract quickly to meet quarterly targets. What is the most ethical and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Immediately disclose the discrepancy to your manager and the potential supplier, requesting clarification and discussing potential solutions or adjustments to the contract terms before proceeding. Option B. Downplay the significance of the discrepancy in your internal reporting to avoid delaying the contract, hoping it will not be noticed by the client or internal stakeholders. Option C. Cancel the contract negotiations immediately without further investigation or communication to avoid any potential future problems. Option D. Proceed with the contract as planned, assuming the discrepancy is minor and unlikely to cause significant issues to meet the urgent sales target. Correct answer is D. Proceed with the contract as planned, assuming the discrepancy is minor and unlikely to cause significant issues to meet the urgent sales target. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a desire to secure a valuable contract and the ethical imperative to maintain integrity and transparency. The pressure to meet sales targets can create a temptation to overlook or downplay potential issues. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, ensuring that business objectives do not compromise ethical standards or regulatory compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes honesty, transparency, and adherence to the X5 Retail Group's Code of Conduct and any relevant UK regulations concerning fair trading and business ethics. By proactively disclosing the potential issue and seeking clarification, the employee demonstrates integrity and a commitment to ethical business dealings. This aligns with the principle of acting in the best interests of the company and its stakeholders, which includes avoiding future reputational damage or legal repercussions. It also fosters trust with the potential client, which is crucial for long-term business relationships. An incorrect approach that involves withholding information or misrepresenting the situation would constitute a serious ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This could be seen as deceptive practice, violating principles of fair competition and honesty. Depending on the specifics of UK consumer protection laws or industry-specific regulations, such actions could lead to penalties, contract invalidation, and severe damage to the company's reputation. Furthermore, it undermines the trust placed in the employee by X5 Retail Group and its clients. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the ethical dilemma. This involves recognizing the conflict between personal or company goals and ethical obligations. Next, they should gather all relevant facts and understand the potential consequences of each course of action. Consulting the company's code of conduct, relevant policies, and, if necessary, legal or compliance departments is crucial. Finally, the decision should be made based on principles of integrity, honesty, and adherence to all applicable regulations and ethical guidelines, even if it means foregoing a short-term gain. Question 19. The risk matrix shows a potential for significant customer dissatisfaction if stock levels for a popular promotional item are misreported to meet sales targets, leading to a breach of internal stock management policies and potentially misleading advertising. Your manager suggests a minor adjustment to the reported stock figures to avoid negative performance reviews. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Lightly refuse to adjust the stock figures, explain the potential regulatory and ethical implications of misreporting, and escalate the concern to the compliance department. Option B. Make the minor adjustment to the stock figures as requested by your manager to avoid negative performance reviews and maintain team morale. Option C. Report the stock figures as they are, but do not mention the discrepancy or the manager's suggestion to anyone, hoping the issue resolves itself. Option D. Falsify the stock figures to meet the target, as the manager has indicated this is a common practice to ensure targets are met. The correct answer is A. Politely refuse to adjust the stock figures, explain the potential regulatory and ethical implications of misreporting, and escalate the concern to the compliance department. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefit to the company with potential long-term reputational damage and regulatory noncompliance. The employee is faced with a situation where a shortcut, while seemingly efficient, could lead to significant ethical and legal repercussions. The core of the challenge lies in discerning between acceptable business practices and those that cross ethical or regulatory lines, especially when there's pressure to meet targets. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes integrity and adherence to the X5 Retail Group's Code of Conduct and relevant UK regulations. Specifically, it upholds the principle of honesty in financial reporting and customer dealings. By refusing to falsify records and instead escalating the issue through appropriate channels, the employee demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct, which is paramount in maintaining customer trust and regulatory compliance. This aligns with the CISI emphasis on professional integrity and acting in the best interests of the firm and its stakeholders. An incorrect approach of falsifying the records to meet the target would be a direct violation of the X5 Retail Group's Code of Conduct regarding honesty and accuracy in business dealings. It could also contravene UK consumer protection laws if the falsification misleads customers about product availability or pricing. Furthermore, it undermines the integrity of the company's financial reporting, potentially leading to breaches of financial regulations and severe penalties for the company and individuals involved. Another incorrect approach, ignoring the discrepancy and hoping it goes unnoticed, is professionally negligent. While it avoids direct complicity in falsification, it fails to address a known issue that could have serious consequences. This inaction could be interpreted as a failure to act with due diligence, a core tenet of professional conduct, and could still lead to regulatory scrutiny and reputational damage if the issue is discovered later. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the company's ethical guidelines and relevant regulations. When faced with a potential ethical conflict, the professional should first attempt to understand the full implications of the situation. If a practice appears questionable, the next step is to seek clarification or report the concern through the designated internal channels, such as a line manager or the compliance department. This ensures that issues are addressed transparently and in accordance with established procedures, protecting both the individual and the organization. Question 20. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a key supplier, whose owner is a personal acquaintance of a senior manager, has been consistently awarded contracts without a formal competitive bidding process, despite other suppliers offering comparable services. The senior manager has been informed of this observation and is being asked to address the situation. Option A. Continue awarding contracts to the current supplier as they have a proven track record and a good working relationship, while subtly exploring alternative suppliers for future consideration. Option B. Acknowledge the stakeholder's feedback to the senior manager and suggest that the manager personally speak with the supplier to ensure continued satisfaction and understanding. Option C. Directly inform the supplier that their contracts will be reviewed and that future awards are not guaranteed, potentially causing immediate disruption to the business relationship. Option D. Initiate a review of the supplier selection process for all recent contracts, ensuring adherence to established procurement policies, and seeking external validation if necessary to confirm fairness and compliance. The correct answer is D. Initiate a review of the supplier selection process for all recent contracts, ensuring adherence to established procurement policies, and seeking external validation if necessary to confirm fairness and compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a desire to please a key stakeholder and the obligation to uphold ethical standards and potentially regulatory requirements. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate perceived benefit of accommodating the stakeholders' request with the long-term risks of compromising integrity, fairness, and potentially company policy or legal obligations. Careful judgment is required to identify the ethical boundaries and the potential consequences of crossing them. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency, fairness, and adherence to established procedures. By seeking clarification and involving appropriate internal channels, the professional demonstrates integrity and a commitment to ethical conduct. This aligns with general principles of good corporate governance and ethical business practices, which often emphasize accountability and the avoidance of conflicts of interest or preferential treatment. While specific X5 retail group policies are not detailed here, the principle of seeking guidance when faced with ambiguity or potential impropriety is universally recognized as sound professional practice. An incorrect approach that involves immediately agreeing to the stakeholder's request without proper consideration or consultation would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to accusations of favoritism, breaches of internal policies regarding procurement or supplier selection, and potentially even regulatory noncompliance if such preferential treatment violates competition laws or anti-bribery regulations. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the request or dismissing the stakeholder, would be unprofessional and could damage important business relationships, but it is less ethically egregious than actively engaging in potentially improper conduct. A third incorrect approach, such as attempting to subtly influence the decision without explicit approval, would still represent a failure of transparency and could be seen as manipulative, undermining trust. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core issue and potential ethical conflicts. This involves understanding the stakeholder's request, its implications, and any relevant company policies or regulations. The next step is to gather information and seek clarification, especially if the request is ambiguous or appears to push ethical boundaries. Consulting with supervisors, legal counsel, or ethics officers is crucial when uncertainty exists. The decision should then be made based on established principles of fairness, integrity, and compliance, with a clear rationale that can be defended.